Good evening and welcome to the St. Louis City Comptroller Candidate Forum. My name is Melanie Johnson, and I'm honored to serve as your moderator for tonight's discussion. The St. Louis City Comptroller is responsible for maintaining the city's financial health, ensuring accountability in government spending, and protecting taxpayers from waste, fraud, and abuse. They sign those checks to adequately make sure the funding goes to where it needs to go in the city of St. Louis. Tonight, we will ask tough questions to ensure that voters understand each candidate's position and ability to lead with integrity, make difficult financial decisions, and stand up to political pressure. We do have some groundkeeping rules to maintain forum structure and rules. Each candidate will have 90 seconds to answer each question. If a candidate's name is mentioned, they will have 30 seconds for a rebuttal, limited to 2 rebuttals per question. A lightning round will also follow for short answer questions. We will then conclude with closing statements from each candidate. Let's begin by introducing our candidates. Each of you will have 90 seconds to introduce yourselves and share your top priority as comptroller. We'll start with incumbent Darlene Green, then we will proceed with Donna Behringer, and then we will end with Celeste Metcalf. 90 seconds begins now. Darlene Green.
Good evening, and thank you for having us this evening. I hail from Washington University with a bachelor's degree in business administration. I have worked in accounting my whole career in public and private. As I entered the comptroller's office, I was able to transform that office, which had a BBB credit, to a AA credit, which we have today. That serves our city well with its strong financial position that spurs growth and also attracts business. We have saved jobs. We have saved good jobs with the NGA. That's 3,000 good-paying jobs. We also create jobs with good credit with 1,000 construction jobs at the $2.8 billion terminal expansion at Lambert International Airport. We have a strong financial position in the city of St. Louis. We have a rainy day fund of $151 million. We have saved $150 million through refinancing. I govern with integrity, experience, and honesty. I am a trusted watchdog over taxpayers' dollars, and in the future, if elected, I plan to continue to strengthen the city's credit and continue to strengthen the city's financial position.
St. Louis City Comptroller Challenger Donna Behringer. 90 seconds starts now.
Thank you for having me. My name is Donna Behringer, and I originally was an alderman for almost 14 years here in the city of St. Louis. I served on the budget committee for 8 years, where I helped balance the budget. And then I ran for state representative, and in Jefferson City, I was on fiscal review, ending up being the minority chair of fiscal review. And in doing this, I was always in charge of seeing that when you have legislation of any type, that the actual fiscal note is accurate. But the reason I'm running for comptroller has a lot to do with the fact that most people don't even know what the comptroller does. Not because it's being hidden, but rather it's very complicated. The comptroller's office has 10 sections. It has accounting services, asset management, contract administration, federal grants, finance and development, financial reporting, gateway transportation center, internal audit, payroll services, and tax increment financing. There are so many entities under the comptroller's office, and I know it's time that we need to look forward to figure out how to best run the comptroller's office. But one of the first things I would do is I would put a dashboard on the comptroller's website so the general public would have some understanding of what the office does and where they are in doing that job.
Thank you so much. Challenger Celeste Metcalf, your 90 seconds starts now.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. My name is Celeste Metcalf. I'm a CPA, certified public accountant. I have an MBA from Washington University. I have a certificate in supply chain management from St. Louis University. One of the 3 things that I'd love to be able to do is structure the accounting system so we get good, accurate information out of our accounting system. The comptroller is responsible for recording all the taxes that we receive, and then if you don't know what taxes are being collected, how can you accurately assess what needs to be paid out? So accounting and the accounting structure is the first thing I'd love to be able to do. I have a proven track record in building accounting systems to operate efficiently and effectively. The second thing I want to do is implement some auditing, internal auditing in the comptroller's office. You need good processes and procedures in place in all departments to be able to audit. And finally, as a CPA, I understand contracts and contract law. So auditing, accounting, and contracts, oversight of contracts, are the three areas I'd love to be able to focus on so we can make intelligent, well-informed business decisions.
Thank you all so much for your opening statements and introductions. We will get into more about what St. Louis City needs to know about the City of Comptroller's office from not only the incumbent Darlene Green, but from challengers Donna Behringer and Celeste Metcalf. That's coming up next on 100.3 The Beat, SEL's Hip Hop and R&B. Welcome back, St. Louis, as we are here with our candidate forum from St. Louis City Comptroller. We are about to get into questions about financial oversight, public trust, and political independence, as well as ethical leadership in the city of St. Louis. The City Comptroller's office is a very important office that a lot of people may not know much about, but it does hold a lot of weight when it comes to decision making in this city. So the first question is about accountability and independence. The Comptroller must often stand up to the mayor and the Board of Aldermen when it comes to fiscal responsibility. Give a specific example of when you have taken an unpopular position against political pressure. If you have never done so, what should voters take from that? We will start with incumbent Darlene Green.
Thank you. Just recently, we had some trouble with the ARPA funds when it came to Northside grants for small businesses. I put together a risk assessment when I saw that there was trouble with grants going to empty lots, structures that were not open. That risk assessment brought some political pressure to me from SLDC and from the mayor, but nonetheless, with courage, I marched forward to make sure that we were able to freeze those grants that were going to the empty lots and to the structures that were not open. So there was $5 million that did not go to empty lots. Now that $5 million is available to make grants up for those long-term small businesses in North St. Louis that are deserving. So those businesses need to be able to trust the city, trust the people who represent them in City Hall, as well as be able to say that this is a place I chose, this is a place I want to be because I can be assured that they want me here. So I'm recommending that at least $100,000 go to those long-term small business out of the $5 million that was saved.
Donna Behringer, you are vying for this seat as well. The question is about standing up to the mayor and the Board of Aldermen, a specific example about how you have taken an unpopular position against political pressure.
So I want people to know that when I was at the Board of Aldermen, right before I left in 2016, I had passed an ordinance. And what that ordinance said was, it said that if you are given $500 or more, whether it's in travel or green seats at the baseball game, that you have to turn that in. That has to be turned into the registrar's office. And the reason I did that was because, this is before Clean Missouri, is because people need to know, even if it's not taxpayer money that's paying for your trip to Washington, D.C. or paying for your green seats, they need to at least know that you had a gift given to you. And it wasn't a new ordinance, but it was an ordinance no one was following. And it was very unpopular with the aldermen because they said, well, now I'm going to have to do all these reports. And I said, well, that's what we're supposed to be doing. But let's move a little bit forward, as in that's not just the City Board of Aldermen. You have what's called a public financial disclosure form. And that is where you're also, every elected official in the city of St. Louis, the state of Missouri, has to do a personal financial disclosure. The problem with that is that when I ask for where can I find copies of that personal financial disclosure for the municipal elected officials, no one can really direct me where, so that we can see that everyone has done them and they're accurate. And that to me is very important because the public has such little trust in elected officials these days. And I want to reinstitute so they know that I will hold elected officials accountable even though they don't want to be.
Thank you. Celeste Metcalf vying for this seat as well. Again, the questions about accountability and independence, standing up to the mayor and the Board of Aldermen. Give us an example about how you stood up and had an unpopular position against political pressure.
Wow. Because I've never held an elected office before, I can't necessarily speak about political pressure. But as a certified public accountant, my training has taught me to make sure I give opinions that are independent and objective. And so there are numerous occasions over my career where I have stood up to my top executives. I was the director of internal audit for St. Louis Public Schools. I stood up and said, this is not making sense. We need some more controls. They let me go. And now look what happened to St. Louis Public Schools. There is fiscal irresponsibility all over the place, but you did not want to listen to the director of internal audit. I was a controller of St. Louis Community College. I told my vice president of finance 1 + 1 is not adding up to 2. He let me go. A year later, the Business Journal reported that an employee had embezzled $5 million. So I have a track record of standing up to instances that don't make sense. As a CPA, 1 + 1 has to add up to 2. I don't care if you're the CEO or the mailman. 1 + 1 has to add up to 2. And that's what I stand for. That's what I stand behind. And that's how I run every job, every position, every situation I've been in.
Thank you for that response. Our second category is about public trust and corruption. St. Louis has a long history of corruption in city government. The previous Board of Aldermen president was convicted of bribery. Can you unequivocally promise that you have never accepted or solicited a bribe, kickback, or inappropriate financial benefit? And what specific reforms will you push to prevent corruption in the Comptroller's office? Incumbent Darlene Green.
I thank you for that question. I've not ever accepted any type of political bribe or anything to that extent, ever. I do run or have an internal audit department. My internal auditors audit all the city departments, as well as have special reviews like cash counts, some surprise cash counts. We will continue to do that and improve quite a few other reviews that we do. We have had great success in making sure that we stopped payments from going to fraudulent companies, perhaps. When the building division was being investigated by the FBI, there was a $378,000 payment due to go out. We stopped that. We have put together a special unit now to audit the ARPA funds that are going to be spent in the next 2 years. We have until 2026, December, to spend those. Our special unit will be auditing those contracts to make sure that we protect the city from abuse and corruption.
Candidate Donna Behringer, the same question. Our Board of Aldermen president was convicted of bribery, faced jail time. Can you say that you never accepted a bribe? And what reforms will you push to prevent corruption from taking place in the Comptroller's office?
Well, I can tell you that no, I've never taken a bribe or any of the above. I'm so worried about things that I have 3 sets of stamps at home. I have my personal stamps, my campaign stamps, and then if I'm an elected official, the elected official stamps. And I'm always scared, and I keep them in different rooms. So that's how much I make sure I don't ever have conflict. But what I need everyone to know that all individuals on boards or commissions should be vetted to make sure that no conflicts of interest exist. Never should a sitting elected official personally benefit from any contracts paid by the taxpayers. Never should a relative receive a contract in the city code of conduct. And there should be rules that stop this. We had a fraud review, but what I realized was that was not happening in the way the Board of Aldermen was seeing. So they actually passed a different piece of legislation called the whistleblower. And that was something that I've asked, has anyone done any whistleblowing? Because the key is you can't have whistleblowers if the whistleblowers aren't protected. We also have travel review that the Comptroller's office actually is supposed to have the cars turned in to the municipal garages, and they're supposed to track the mileage. So if you're using a car from the city of St. Louis, every Friday it's supposed to be turned in and a review of how much mileage is on it. Then we could see, is anyone abusing the mileage and the travel with the cars? We need an ethical code of conduct, but it needs to be one that is followed. And I think that's the key right now. It needs to be printed. You need to hold your hand up. And if you violate it, you're out.
Celeste Metcalf, candidate for City Comptroller. Same question, public trust and corruption. 3 aldermen were arrested, convicted of bribery. Can you say you never accepted a bribe? And what reforms will you push to prevent corruption?
Well, first of all, thank you for that question. No, I have never accepted a bribe, never been approached to even attempt to accept a bribe. But one of the things that I would put in place are internal controls. I think a lot of people think that when an auditor comes in, an auditor is supposed to discover something. An auditor is only there to offer an independent, objective opinion based on information that you should already know. And so most businesses should already have a system of internal controls in place. And when I say internal controls, I'm talking about processes and procedures designed to minimize the risk of error and fraud. One of the ways you do that is separate the person who has the authority to record a transaction from the person who has the authority to initiate or approve a transaction. And so there are three things you want to separate: the custody, like the custody of the check stock, for example. If this was a small company, separate the custody of the check stock from the person signing the checks, from the person authorizing and recording those checks. So proper segregation of duties does a lot to minimize corruption, but there's never an instance where you're totally going to eliminate it. I don't think that's what the public really gets, but you need to establish policies and procedures over all financial related transactions, and that's a great start to minimize corruption and fraud.
Thank you. Moving on to a topic that's pretty big and pretty influential when it comes to St. Louis city politics: political influence and ethics. Many elected officials hire friends, family, or political allies for government contracts and staff positions. Have you ever hired or benefited from a close friend, donor, or family member with taxpayer dollars? If so, explain why voters should still trust you. If not, how will you stop this practice in the Comptroller's office? Incumbent Darlene Green.
I have never hired or anyone in my office that's a close family member or anything like that, a close friend. We have protections in the Comptroller's office with the policies and procedures, as well as the Internal Audit Unit. I've not ever benefited from a contract from a close friend or anything like that. I think that the honesty, integrity, and the trust that I have, goes a long way with what the experience that I have in the last 29 years proves, because there has not been a bit of hint of that kind of abuse or corruption in my office, but I am one to call the attention to it. For example, we have a whistleblower hotline that has been in our office since the 90s, and we have had more than a dozen opportunities to assist. There was some corruption in several departments that we brought to light. FBI was party to help our office in the forestry department, police department, and several others. So we have been party to help those to root out corruption for many, many years in the city of St. Louis.
Thank you. Donna Behringer, the challenger. You are running because you want change. So how will you stop this form of corruption and nepotism from being in City Hall or the Comptroller's office?
Well, I thought about your question for a second, and then I go back to the fact that we as elected officials also have to run for office. And when you run for office, you have to raise money. And so I tell people, I said, sometimes what is something you need to look at is maybe you should go through the financial records of the elected officials and see if they match up to the people who get awarded contracts to their offices, or maybe they get work from their office because they can grant that. They have the sole discretion to do that. And so that is something I would want people to think about, because that's public record. You can go on to the Missouri Ethics Commission website and you could look at any of our reports. In fact, we have an 8-day report coming up. We just had a 20-day report. So anytime you're running for office, that you are allowed to be reviewed for that. But I can honestly tell you, I've never been around corruption. I've never been a part of corruption. And so I guess it's because I'm all about looking at numbers, and I'm not influenced. In fact, if I was influenced, I promise you, I'd probably always run unopposed. I will take I'll take the hard line if I don't think it's good and it's not in the best interest of the people I represent, then I'm not going to do it, and that's it. Period. You're not going to sway me. That's it. I represent the taxpayers. Period.
Thank you, Challenger Celeste Metcalf. Political influence and ethics. Have you ever hired or benefited from a close friend or family member with taxpayer dollars? And if so, how will you stop the practice in this Comptroller's office?
I have never hired or benefited from a relative or friend working with me or for me. One of the ways I would stop that in the Comptroller's office is, one, to have well-documented processes and procedures. Number two, match the qualifications of the person that I'm hiring with those qualifications. Number three, make sure you document and ask the question, who are you related to? Is there a conflict of interest? Does a conflict of interest exist? And so I think the combination of those things would help root out the issues that we're discussing today.
Next question, fraud prevention and auditing. City departments often claim they are being underfunded, but audits show widespread inefficiencies and waste. If elected, would you support forensic audits of every department, including elected officials' offices? Why or why not? Incumbent Darlene Green.
Yes, I definitely agree that departments should be audited, if not annually, at least every couple of years, because, there are some good processes all the way around so that there's delivery of city services and things like that. But a good office can also be better. And a better office also can become a little bit better than that. And that's what we want to continue to strive for. We want to strive for better delivery of city services, better operations in any department that works for the city, including the Comptroller's office. I say that the Comptroller's office has good governance, and some of the proof of that is we receive some certificates every year from the GFOA. For excellence in our office. However, that doesn't mean that we stop there. We can still improve. We can become more digital. We can put up portals from the Comptroller's office, and we can make sure that other departments in the city of St. Louis are also improved. Forensic audits are great, financial audits as well as forensic audits, operational audits. We may definitely make sure that separation of duties occur and that we're running an office in the Comptroller's office in a professional manner, as well as any other office in city government.
Thank you. Donna Behringer, if elected, would you support forensic audits of every department, including elected officials? Why or why not?
No, I absolutely, that would be a top priority to do forensic audits. Just looking at, and this is why I enjoy being on fiscal review, which is the fact that I'll get something handed to me that maybe I don't know about agriculture or whatever, but I have to look at the numbers and do they match and does it make sense and is it accurate? And so I can look at different things. And one of the things I was looking at, because I was looking in some of our funds, and I saw that the sewer lateral line program, which every entity in the city of St. Louis, it's different for commercial and rental, but residential pays $28 a year for that sewer lateral line program. And I would want to know how many have we repaired and how much money is sitting in that account, because I want to know. And are we allowed to give salaries from that sewer lateral line program? Because if we are, what percentage of that money, of the taxpayers' money, is going to salaries versus actually fixing those lines? And that's the way my brain works. I say to myself, here's a program. Is it running in the way that it's efficient, that the taxpayers had intended, because it's their money, not ours? And that's the way I would look at it. There's other funds I have concerns about. The Fire Insurance Recovery Fund, I would want to make sure that we're getting that money moved, because if it hasn't been spent down or given to the people it was appropriated for, then we need to fix that.
Thank you. Celeste Metcalf, if elected, would you support forensic audits of every department? Why or why not?
Oh, I absolutely would support a forensic audit. A forensic audit is designed to detect crime and or fraud. So I certainly would support a forensic audit, particularly when you're talking about a changing of the guards and a changing of new administration. But in addition to that, we should have regular, what I call financial statement audits, to confirm that our processes and our procedures that we have in place are working properly. And so when you have an audit that determines that your procedures are working properly and the person who's signing the checks is signing the checks, and if checks over a certain amount need to be signed by two people, those checks are being signed by two people and the appropriate people. So when you have financial audits in place on a regular and consistent basis, then those financial audits will reveal areas where a forensic audit may be necessary. And so I am certainly not opposed to financial audits or forensic audits, but I think on a regular basis, more than anything, we should have financial statement audits to ensure that our processes, our procedures are working properly and everybody is doing what they're supposed to be doing the way they're supposed to be doing it.
Thank you all for those answers. We will now transition into a lightning round. We have 15 to 30 seconds to provide clear and direct answers to the following questions. The first one, transparency and accountability. Should all city contracts over $50,000 be made available online in real time for public review? Why or why not? We'll start with the incumbent, Darlene Green. 30 seconds starts now.
I'm in favor of transparency, accountability, and yes, all contracts should be online. and make sense so that the taxpayers can know who we're contracting with, how much, and for what.
Donna Behringer.
Well, I agree. However, we just had a Board of E&A meeting, and in there they voted on a $685,000 TIF contract to job out jobs to follow the TIFs for the city of St. Louis to an outside corporation. So I didn't find that very transparent myself.
Celeste Metcalf.
I think it's important to have transparency and accountability. My only question is, what time will we take to respond to issues that the public has? There's got to be a cost benefit. $50,000 is a low contract amount to be able to say everybody needs to see this. As if we have good processes in place, if we have people inside controlling, monitoring, and watching, okay, then I don't know that would be necessary in all cases.
Thank you. Question number 2, mismanagement and oversight. What is the single biggest financial mistake St. Louis has made in the last decade, and how would you have handled it differently? 30 seconds starts now with incumbent Darlene Green.
The biggest financial mismanagement, is that what
Yes.
you're asking? I think when you talk about grants going to empty lots, I think that's a huge, huge mistake, and somebody needs to be accountable for it. That's why I spoke out so fervently, and I continue to speak out about that, because $420-something million, $498 million that is, came to the city of St. Louis from ARPA, and we need to spend that money very efficiently, effectively on behalf of the taxpayers, and it should not be wasted. So I'm going to be fighting hard to make sure we audit those dollars to make they're spent on behalf of the taxpayers. Thank you.
Thank you. The biggest financial mistake in St. Louis, Donna Behringer.
It would be how we've handled the ARPA funds, because right now we have a new sheriff in town in Washington, D.C., and I have a feeling, because we have not spent it down, that they're going to come in and take those committed monies away from us. So we need to, as the Comptroller's office, need to hurry up and fast track getting that money into things that will happen. But I also want people to know that when the Board of E&A met on Wednesday, the mayor said that they had been planning for a year and a half for those ARPA funds, and that there was an actual committee that was on it, and the Comptroller's office had a seat at that table to decide about the money.
Thank you. Celeste Metcalf, the biggest financial mistake in St. Louis.
Well, good question. I don't know that there's a single biggest mistake. All I can say is a chain is only as strong as its weakest link. Everything north of Delmar is suffering. And so the fact that we haven't given enough attention to everything north of Delmar, when you take money and put it in the bank and just to collect interest, as opposed to taking that money and allowing that money to be to go towards development projects that can generate more revenue than the interest in the bank, that's something that should be considered.
Thank you. This final question, campaign contributions and influence. Will you commit to refusing campaign contributions from businesses or individuals who receive city contracts? If not, how will you ensure those donations do not influence your decisions? Incumbent Darlene Green.
What I will do is commit to say that I will not be influenced by any contribution that I receive from any business that does business with the city of St. Louis. I never have been influenced by that. I never will be influenced by that. And I will definitely go on record, for anybody can check the Ethics Commission to see who's giving money to me, and then they can also check to see how and if I'm being influenced by that. So that will absolutely not happen. But those businesses are in St. Louis. They are giving not only to myself, but both of my opponents if they are running for office.
Thank you. Donna Behringer, campaign contributions and influence, 30 seconds.
Well, no, I'm not going to take money from people that I would be giving contracts to. That would be a conflict of interest. But the interesting thing is, once again, Missouri Ethics Commission, when it comes to municipal elections, they say it's up to our local Board of Elections. And under the former mayor, they had actually said we need to set up a board that goes and reviews all of these city municipal elected officials' reports. To date, we have not set that commission up or that board, and we need to have that board because we do need to have eyes watching out for all the elected officials.
Celeste Metcalf, same question, campaign contributions and influence.
As a CPA, my training has taught me that the very appearance of impropriety is just as bad as the act of impropriety itself. I would not take campaign donations from anybody who has a contract with the city of St. Louis or better yet, who has a desire to influence any of my decisions. 1 + 1 is always going to add up to 2. I don't care who you are.
Thank you all to the candidates for the St. Louis City Comptroller's office. Coming up next, we'll have their closing statements about why you should vote for them for Comptroller 2025. Coming up next on 100.3 The Beat, SEL's Hip Hop and R&B. We are nearing the end of our forum, and each candidate will now have 2 minutes instead of 90 seconds for closing remarks, and they can also have a closing statement in addition to answering this question. Looking back 4 years from now, what is the one signature achievement you want to be remembered for as comptroller, and how will you measure its success? We will start with Comptroller Darlene Green.
Thank you for that. In my closing remarks, I'll just say that the comptroller's office that I have had the opportunity and the pleasure of being having leadership of has really been transformed over the last 29 years from a triple B credit to a double A credit, sparing development, good jobs, and $150 million in reserves. We're going to need those reserves as we go into our future. But I also have to say that being an elected, independent office, I've had the courage to stand up to the mayor and those who would want to bring abuse and corruption into city government by protecting tax dollars. I have protected the tax dollars with integrity, with honesty, and above all, experience. The taxpayers have come to trust the comptroller, and they understand that I represent people first. That is what I have done. That is what I have been known for in the service to the community. And if I'm elected again, I will continue the independent, courageous spirit that I've always been known for, because that's what the taxpayers deserve. Nothing less than somebody that's looking out for their hard-earned tax dollars, because it's about the taxpayers and it's not about the elected officials. And if I would say what I want to be remembered for, I would love for people to remember me for the trust, the accountability, the integrity. Because, the service is the most important to me, making sure that those who have put in their hard-working dollars as taxes to the city to pay my salary, it's given back to them triple over that. And thank you so much.
Thank you. Donna Behringer, your 2 minutes starts now with closing remarks.
Thank you. Well, I wanted people to know that I had not planned to run for comptroller, not because I don't think I'm qualified, but rather because I didn't see the need until I started reading the newspaper. And in the newspaper, we had seen where I will show up for work. I will make sure contracts are paid on time, especially payroll. And the reason that's an important thing is because that's why I ran for comptroller. I have to bring trust back to the people. That is missing right now. The people are back there reading the paper going, what is happening to our city? And I don't blame the people who work inside the comptroller's office at all. They are completely overworked and understaffed. And of course they are. I had gone at the beginning and I explained to you there are 10 different areas under the comptroller's office. That's way too much. What's in there that could come out that could make it so the comptroller is just focused on doing accounting work? And that would be the Gateway Transportation Center. That's the bus terminal and the train terminal. Why is the comptroller's office running that? That should be under this new department that the voters voted for that says Transportation Department. That makes perfect sense. We already saw that we're jobbing out the tax increment financing work. Now, I don't know where that company is located that's doing the work, but we are jobbing that work out. Payroll services, that one really bothers me because I actually was told when we filed to run for office, the aldermen who were filing, they had not had the earnings tax deducted from their payroll for 2024. None of them had, and they didn't understand why. So I definitely want to make sure that maybe we should have a payroll services that's running this. But I do know at the end of the day, everyone knows I lead by example. My track record speaks for itself. I will get work done on the first day. Transparency is my priority. I have always been transparent. I have always put the taxpayers first, and I love this city. And I want to make sure that people don't keep thinking our city is failing. It's not failing. It just needs new leadership.
Celeste Metcalf, your closing statement, 2 minutes starts now.
Wow. At the end of 4 years, I'd love to be able to say I stopped the decline. We've had a decline in our population on average 25,000 residents per decade over the last 3 decades. We've had businesses leaving. And so with the tax base, with the residents leaving and the businesses leaving, that's our revenue walking out the door. That's our revenue decline. And so what I'd love to be able to say after 4 years is I stopped the decline. I stopped the the population decline, the business decline. I'd like to see in 4 years an improvement in this city. We live in an incredible city, but we've got assets that we're not really taking advantage of. So I'd love to be able to build businesses, grow the population, and have revenues that can eliminate the 1% earnings tax that we have to pay now. I'd love to see North St. Louis look like other areas of our city. I'd love to see us grow. And so growth is on my agenda. After 4 years, I'd love to be able to say, I made this happen.
So we're going to take 30 seconds with each candidate. I want you to tell the people of St. Louis why they should vote for you. 30 seconds, starting with incumbent Darlene Green.
They should vote for Comptroller Darlene Green because I have a great experience and understanding of the Comptroller's office. My opponent would privatize payroll. My opponent doesn't understand that the TIF contract that she's referring to is an IT contract so that TIF can become digital. You need an experienced, trusted, and you need a comptroller that doesn't come with false narratives or misunderstandings about the whole entire department of which she should be running. I am an accountant my whole career, public and private accounting. I understand accounting, separation of duties, trust, accountability, and transparency is what you will have if you elect Comptroller Darlene Green. So please vote for me March 4th and April 8th. Thank you so much.
Thank you. 30 seconds. Why should people vote for you, Donna Behringer?
Well, the one thing I do bring to the table is that I served already as an alderman, and then I served at the state level. I have very big concerns about what's happening at the state level when it comes to the budget. I've watched for the last 8 years, every single year, the city of St. Louis always gets slighted when it comes to money. And I do have the relationships in Jefferson City so that I can go to them and say, do not slide us again out of this budget. Kansas City keeps getting all the money, and we need to build a new airport. That airport is actually one of the best assets we have, and we need to make sure we have a premier airport.
Celeste Metcalf, 30 seconds. Why should people vote for you?
You should vote for me because I'm not a politician. I'm a businesswoman. As a certified public accountant, I make business decisions for business reasons. Vote for me because I'm the best qualified candidate for this job. As a CPA, I record things consistent with generally accepted accounting principles. I'm the only one who has the capacity and the experience and the proven track record for building accounting systems. I have audit experience from KPMG. So as an accountant, as an auditor, and as a businesswoman, I am the best candidate for this job. Vote for Celeste Metcalf on March 4th.
Thank you to our candidates for their time and to our audience for your engagement in this discussion. The role of comptroller is one of the most powerful yet least understood positions in this city government, but your vote in this election will decide the management of finances, transparency, and protecting taxpayers. Make sure you are registered and informed before Election Day. For details on polling locations and election procedures, visit the Board of Elections website. Thank you so much and have a great evening.